Razan Abu Zahir died starving. She was 4 years old. She died on the floor of a collapsing hospital, her tiny ribs rising and falling like wings too fragile to lift. Her voice, once a whisper of laughter, had long since vanished. She did not die quickly. She died slowly. She died watched by her mother begging her to hold on, by a doctor with no more syringes, no more saline, no more words, by a world that tuned in, then turned away. Her death wasn't a tragedy, it was a sentence. Razan is not alone. She is one of thousands. Between March and June, well into the full blockade, the UN screened over 74,000 children in Gaza. More than 5,500 were diagnosed with severe acute malnutrition. Over 800 were already critical. That was months after food was declared a threat, after flour became contraband, after milk became a memory. Now, children die in their parents' arms. Mothers held babies who no longer cry because crying requires too much energy. Fathers dig graves with their bare hands, whispering lullabies into the dust. Gaza has been besieged by hunger, by death, by Arab betrayal, and international treachery. Those not killed by bombs are dying from starvation or disease. And in the background, gunfire, because even starvation isn't safe in Gaza. This isn't famine, it's weaponized hunger, a deliberate strangling of life. Israel bombs bakeries, shells aid convoys, flattens farms, blocks food. It starves Gaza with the same precision it uses to kill her. Yes, history has known starvation as a weapon, but what's happening in Gaza is unprecedented. Never before has a civilian population been locked into a fenced strip of land, denied food, water and fuel, while being bombed from land, air and sea. This is not a siege. It is the world's first televised extermination, a concentration camp under constant aerial assault. In Bosnia, starvation broke the will to resist. In Amaksa, 700 inmates died of hunger and torture. In Srebrenica, even food was contraband. And before Bosnia, the Nazi hunger plan, 7 million starved by design. As sociologist Martin Shaw writes, Israel is following the Nazi genocide pattern described by Raphael Lemkin in Axis rule in occupied Europe, a daily fight for bread and survival to handicap thinking in national terms. This is not just an assault on bodies, it is a war against consciousness, a starvation meant to kill and to crush the will to live, to think, to organize, to hope. Even the journalists are starving. Al Jazeera correspondents say, we bring you the news while we ourselves are hungry. We haven't found a morsel since yesterday. When the observer becomes the victim, when hunger swallows the narrator, we are no longer in crisis. We are in catastrophe. And still, Palestinians queue for food, knowing it may be the last line they ever stand in. They walk into what are now GHF killing zones, 8 points turned ambushes. Yesterday, on July 20th alone, 115 Palestinians were shot dead while seeking food. 92 were collecting aid. 19 were children. Since May 27, more than 1,000 killed, 5,000 wounded at food distribution points. One father, thin, weeping, cradling the bloodied body of his son, was filmed after they were shot. He didn't scream. He just rocked the boy in his arms as gunfire echoed behind him, whispering his name because that was all he had left. This is not a humanitarian crisis. It is extermination through hunger. And still, the world calls it war. No, it is not war. It is annihilation, choreographed, prolonged, and permitted. So who are the culprits? Yes, Israel drops the bombs. Yes, the US pays for them, then shields it with vetoes. But the noose, the tightening of life, is held by others too. Let's talk about Europe. So proud of its enlightenment, so quick to cry never again, so silent when the bodies are Palestinian. The EU is Israel's biggest trading partner. It signed a deal making human rights a condition of trade. That condition, now a grave. Even its own review found Israel in breach. And what did Europe do? Nothing. Then, to save face, the EU claimed a humanitarian breakthrough. But it was theater. No siege lifted. No aid flowed. It was a smokescreen, a gesture to blind the public while children starved. As Amnesty International put it, a cruel and unlawful betrayal of law. of conscience, and of Europe itself. And what of the Arab regimes? They stand closest. They speak of brotherhood, of shed blood, but really they're wardens, jailers, enforcers. Start with Sisi, the general president ushered in through a blood-drenched Israel-backed coup. He rules Egypt with tear gas and prisons, and in Sinai he built a buffer zone to lock Gaza out. Rafah is closed. Aid rots in the sun. Doctors and nurses are barred. Children are dying, not from lack of aid, but because aid is blocked. Foreign activists are detained. Journalists deported. Kufi is criminalized. This isn't security. It is servitude. And Jordan, a kingdom jailing its own citizens for waving flags, pitching tents, speaking the name Palestine. They say it's about the Muslim Brotherhood. It's really about crushing any flicker of solidarity with Gaza. What Sisi does with checkpoints, Jordan does with courtrooms. These are not bystanders. They're partners in siege, in famine, in slaughter. And all the while, amid the slow murder and the theater of diplomacy, we were told to wait, to negotiate. But what kind of world makes feeding children a matter of debate? What kind of diplomacy turns bread into a bargaining chip? Netanyahu treated food as leverage, and the world let him. This wasn't just immoral, it was illegal, it was obscene. Humanitarian access is not a favor, it's a legal obligation. To delay, to debate it is to turn hunger into a weapon, and diplomacy into an accomplice to war crimes. What's happening in Gaza doesn't just violate law, it obliterates it. It tears through every principle humanity claims to uphold. And it shows us something darker still. The world did not merely fail Gaza, it abandoned her, and in doing so it exposed itself. Gaza is not just a killing field, she is a mirror, and in her reflection we see our absolute, unvarnished shame.